I want you to close your eyes for a second and imagine this with me. You're standing on the deck of a destroyer. It's October 25th, 1944. Dawn is just breaking over the Pacific Ocean. You can smell the salt in the air, feel the vibration of the engines under your feet, and then you see them through the morning mist. Battleships. 4 of them. Their silhouettes rising from the horizon like steel mountains. Behind them, cruisers, destroyers. You start counting 10 ships, 15, 20, 23. Your captain's voice comes over the loudspeaker. Calm, too calm. All hands, battle stations, we are engaging the enemy. You look around, you're on one destroyer, and you realize he's not running, he's attacking. Look, I've spent years researching World War II naval battles. I've read countless after-action reports, survivor testimonies, Japanese records, and I can tell you this. What I'm about to show you is the single most insane act of courage in naval history. And if you want to see how far human bravery can actually go, how one man's decision changed the course of an entire battle, you need to hit that subscribe button right now. Because this story isn't just about ships and tactics. This is about 327 men who looked at mathematical certainty of death and said, yeah, we're doing this anyway. Let me set the stage for you. I'm talking about the USS Johnston, DD 557, a Fletcher-class destroyer. Let me give you the specs so you understand what we're dealing with. 376 feet long, 2,700 tons, armed with 5 5-inch guns and 10 torpedoes. Fast. She could hit 38 knots, maneuverable. But here's the thing, she's made of thin steel. They call destroyers tin cans for a reason. A heavy shell could punch through her hull like it's aluminum foil. Now, commanding this ship is Commander Ernest Evans. And here's where it gets interesting. Evans is half Cherokee, born in Oklahoma in 1908. Think about what that means. In 1920s America, when Evans is growing up, Native Americans are barely considered full citizens. They're still being forced onto reservations. And this man, this half Cherokee kid from Oklahoma, somehow makes it into the Naval Academy, graduates in 1931, works his way up through pure skill and an absolutely unshakable will. When the Johnston is commissioned on October 27, 1943, Evans stands in front of his entire crew, 327 men, most of them teenagers fresh out of high school, and he tells them something that everyone thinks is just officer bravado. This is going to be a fighting ship. I intend to go in harm's way, and anyone who doesn't want to go along had better get off right now. The crew thinks he's trying to sound tough. They have no idea he means every single word. For the next year, the Johnston fights across the Pacific, Kwajalein, Eniwetok, the Marshalls, Guam. They provide gunfire support for Marines, they hunt submarines, they escort carriers. In May 1944, they depth charge and sink a Japanese submarine, the I-176. Evans gets a Bronze Star, but by October 1944, they're just another destroyer in the fleet. Nothing special. One ship among hundreds. That's about to change in the most dramatic way possible. October 25th, 1944. The Johnston is part of TAFE, 3 Task Unit 77.4.3. Their mission is simple. Escort 6 baby flat tops, escort carriers that are providing air support for MacArthur's invasion of Leyte in the Philippines. These aren't the big fleet carriers. They're converted merchant ships with flight decks slapped on top, thin-skinned, slow, armed with pop guns, protecting them. 3 destroyers, Johnston is 1, and 4 destroyer escorts. 7 ships total. The expectation is easy duty. Admiral Halsey's got the big battleships up north. They're the muscle. Taffy 3 is just here for air support and anti-submarine work. But here's what nobody knows. The Japanese are launching their last desperate gamble. Operation Shogo. They're sending their entire remaining fleet, split into 3 forces, to converge on Leyte Gulf and annihilate the American invasion. And Admiral Halsey. He gets baited north by a Japanese carrier force. He takes all his battleships and charges after them, leaving a gap. Through that gap comes Admiral Kurita with the center force. And let me tell you what that force looks like, because you need to understand the sheer scale of what we're talking about. 4 battleships, Yamato, 72,000 tons, 9 18.1-inch guns, the most powerful warship ever built. Nagato, Kongo, Haruna, 6 heavy cruisers, each one outweighing the Johnston 3-1, 2 light cruisers, 11 destroyers. This isn't a fleet, this is a wrecking ball, and they're headed straight for those helpless escort carriers. Straight for the invasion beaches where tens of thousands of American soldiers are sitting ducks. All that stands between Kurita and total disaster is Taffy 3. At 6:47 a.m., an American pilot on dawn patrol radios back, and I've read his actual transmission. Enemy surface force sighted. Oh my God, you guys need to see this. I want you to picture what happens next on the Johnston's bridge. The radar operator is staring at his screen, and his voice is shaking. Captain Evans, I'm picking up multiple large contacts. Sir, I'm reading 4 battleships. This can't be right. Evans grabs his binoculars, looks northwest, and through the morning mist, he sees them, the silhouettes, the pagoda masts of Japanese battleships rising from the horizon. Admiral Sprague's voice comes over the radio from the flagship. All ships, this is Taffy 3 actual. Enemy battleships spotted. All units lay smoke and retire eastward at maximum speed. Translation, run. Make smoke and run like hell because you cannot fight this. The carriers start turning. The other destroyers start making smoke. Everything's going by the book. And then Ernest Evans does something that still, 80 years later, makes my jaw drop when I read the after action. Reports. He orders the Johnston to turn toward the enemy. All ahead flank, left full rudder, sound general quarters, load all torpedo tubes. We're attacking. His executive officer, Lieutenant Commander Hogan, stares at him. Sir, did you say we're attacking? Evans looks at him, and I want you to hear what he says because this is documented in multiple survivor accounts. We're going in, signal the crew, this is what we came here for. This is the moment. This is where the legend begins. Because what happens in the next 2.5 hours isn't just a naval battle. It's a masterclass in courage, in sacrifice, in what humans can do when they refuse to accept defeat. Okay? Let me walk you through what happens next, because this is where it gets absolutely insane. The Johnston turns to port and accelerates to flank speed, 35 knots. Her engines are screaming. She's throwing up a massive bow wave. Every man on that ship is running to battle stations. Now, here's what the Japanese. See, picture yourself on the bridge of the Yamato. You're steaming toward what you think is going to be an easy victory. 6 thin-skinned escort carriers, no heavy ships to protect them. And then through your rangefinder, you see this tiny destroyer, this speck, turn toward you, alone, no support. Just one small ship charging straight at the most powerful battleship ever built. At first, the Japanese think it's a mistake. They think the Americans don't realize what they're facing. And then the Johnston's 5 guns open fire, rapid fire. The shells arc across 6 miles of ocean, leaving white smoke trails against the morning sky. Now, Evans knows those 5-inch shells can't penetrate battleship armor. That's not the point. He's running a torpedo attack. Get in close. Launch torpedoes. The guns are just to keep the Japanese busy while he closes the distance. But to do that, he has to cross 6 miles of ocean while 23 Japanese ships shoot at him. And they do. Oh God, do they. Ever. The Japanese fleet turns their guns on the Johnston. Yamato's main battery, 9 18.1-inch guns. Each shell weighs 3,100 pounds. Kongo's 14-inch guns. Nagato's 16-inch guns. Every cruiser, every destroyer, all firing at this one small ship. The ocean around the Johnston erupts. And here's something I learned from survivor testimony that still gives me chills. The Japanese used dye-loaded shells, so each ship could track their own fire. So the geysers erupting around the Johnston are rainbow-colored. Red, green, yellow, pink, purple. It's beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Some of these water columns are 300 feet tall, taller than a 30-story building. The concussion from near misses lifts the Johnston's stern completely out of the water. Shrapnel from airbursts is tearing through the superstructure, killing men, wrecking equipment, and Evans keeps coming. On the bridge, he's calling out helm commands like he's conducting a symphony. Left standard rudder, steady, now. Right full rudder, all ahead, flank. He's reading the fall of shot, watching where the shells land and dodging before the next salvo arrives. It's not luck, it's skill, it's instinct, it's borderline supernatural. The torpedo officer shouts, "Captain, we're in range 10,000 yards. Evans, negative, we're going closer. Sir, Closer. 9,000 yards. 8,000. The shells are falling like a steel rain. One near miss punches a hole in the hull. Water pours in. Damage control teams are already running to plug it. 7,000 yards. 6,000. At 6,000 yards, barely 3 miles, Evans gives the order. Fire all torpedoes. 10. Mark 15 torpedoes leap from the Johnston's tubes. They hit the water and race toward the Japanese fleet at 45 knots, leaving white wakes across the ocean. The target, the heavy cruiser Kumano, leading the Japanese formation. On the Kumano, lookouts are screaming warnings. The cruiser tries to turn, but she's massive, slow. 3 torpedoes hit, boom. Massive explosions tear through Kumano's bow. Her entire forward section, just gone, blown completely off. She's billowing black smoke, slowing, turning away from the battle. The Johnston just crippled a 13,000-ton heavy cruiser. But here's the problem. Now, every Japanese ship knows exactly where the Johnston is, and they're all firing at the same target. A salvo from Yamato, 3 18.1-inch shells, falls directly on the Johnston's position. 2 miss, close. So close the concussion blows men off their feet. The third hits. Now, here's something incredible. It doesn't detonate. It's an armor-piercing shell designed to punch through battleship armor, and the Johnston's thin hull doesn't provide enough resistance to trigger the fuse. So this massive shell, this 3,200-pound projectile, just punches completely through the ship like a spear through paper. It enters the aft engine room, travels through the entire space, exits the other side, and detonates in the ocean. But the damage is catastrophic. There's a hole you could drive a truck through. Steam is erupting everywhere, scalding men alive. The engine room floods. One of the Johnston's 2 engines goes offline. The ship shudders, slows. Evans. Damage report. Captain, we've lost engine room number 2. We're down to half power. Major flooding aft. We're taking on water. Evans looks at the Japanese fleet. They're still coming, and now the Johnston is wounded, slower, an easier target. The logical move, the move every tactical manual says to make, is retreat. Make smoke and get out while you still can. And here's where Evans does something that even now, reading the testimony, I can barely wrap my head around. He turns back toward the Japanese fleet. Come left, prepare for gun engagement. All batteries engage targets of opportunity, fire at will. His officers are staring at him like he's lost his mind. And maybe he has, or maybe he's achieved some kind of clarity that only comes when you've accepted you're probably going to die. The Johnston, wounded, on fire, down to 1 engine, already hit by the largest battleship in the world, turns back into the teeth of the Japanese fleet and starts a gunfight. And you know what? If you're feeling that adrenaline spike right now, if your heart is pounding, hit that like button. Because what I'm about to show you next is even more insane. And make sure you're subscribed, because next week I'm covering the Battle of Basing Pass, where 77 Filipino soldiers held off 2,000 Japanese for 3 months straight. You need to hear that story. Let me paint you a picture of what the next hour looks like on the Johnston. Her 5-inch guns are firing as fast as the crews can load them, and I mean fast. These gun crews have trained for a year straight. They can maintain a rate of fire that's almost superhuman. Load, aim, fire, load, aim, fire. The barrels are glowing red hot. Spent shell casings are piling up knee-deep on the deck. You can see it in the photographs taken later. And here's the thing. They're hitting. The Johnston shells are slamming into Japanese destroyers, cruisers, even the battleships. They're not penetrating the heavy armor. 5-inch shells can't do that. But they're wrecking superstructures. They're destroying radar arrays. They're killing exposed crews on deck. They're starting fires. But more importantly, and this is the key to understanding what Evans is doing, they're drawing fire. Every shell the Japanese shoot at the Johnston is a shell they're not shooting at those carriers. Every second the Japanese spend dealing with this one destroyer is a second the carriers have to escape. Evans isn't trying to win this fight. He's buying time. He's trading his ship, trading his life, trading his crew's lives for minutes, for seconds. And the crew realizes this. They know they're probably going to die, but they keep fighting. Let me tell you about some of these men, because they deserve to be remembered. Fire Controlman Robert. Billy. He's Choctaw, from Oklahoma, like Evans. He's in the fire control station calling out targets, calculating firing solutions. He's been wounded twice. Shrapnel in his arm, burns on his face from a near miss, but he stays at his post. His voice never wavers. Gunner's mate Jennings is loading shells at Mount 52 even though his mount is on fire. The deck around him is slick with blood. Half his crew is dead or wounded, but he keeps loading because what else is he going to do? Quit? Not while the captain's still fighting. Seaman Chuck Campbell is at the helm. He's steering this ship through a literal storm of steel, dodging shells by instinct because the smoke is so thick he can barely see 50 yards. His hands are steady on the wheel. And on the bridge, Commander Evans. He's covered in blood from shrapnel wounds. His uniform is torn. His face is black with soot. But he's absolutely calm. Calling orders, directing fire, maneuvering his dying ship like he's conducting an orchestra. Now here's something that survivor testimonies mention that just breaks my heart. At one point, a young ensign, fresh out of the academy, probably 22 years old, comes up to Evans and says, "Captain, we need to fall back. We're not going to make it." Evans looks at him, and according to the testimony, this is what he says. "Son, we're not here to make it. We're here to stop them. Now, get back to your post." The ensign salutes and runs back to his station. That's leadership, not the kind you read about in textbooks. The kind that only emerges when everything is on the line. By 8:30 a.m., the Johnston has been fighting for an hour and a half, and something incredible is happening. The Japanese fleet is slowing down. They're maneuvering erratically. They're confused. Why? Because it's not just the Johnston anymore. When Evans charged alone, the other destroyers saw what he was doing, and they made a choice. They followed. USS Hull, USS Hermann, the destroyer escort Samuel B. Roberts, Dennis, John C. Butler, Raymond. 7 small ships charging 23 giants. They're launching torpedoes, making smoke, firing their guns, creating chaos, making the Japanese think they're facing a much larger force. And the carriers, those helpless baby flat tops, are launching every plane they have. Fighters, torpedo bombers, even planes with nothing but practice depth charges. They're strafing Japanese battleships, dropping anything they can, even running fake attack runs when they're out of ammunition just to make the Japanese maneuver and waste time. It's beautiful chaos. Desperate, heroic, insane chaos. But the Johnston is dying. By 9 a.m., she's been hit by 3 battleships, multiple cruisers, and sustained fire from destroyers. Her forward 5-inch mount is destroyed. Her bridge is uninhabitable, filled with smoke and fire. The forward superstructure is a twisted wreck. Evans moves his command to the fantail, the open deck at the stern. He's standing, completely exposed, directing what's left of his guns. And then a 6-inch shell from the cruiser, Yahagi, explodes 20 feet away. The blast wave hits Evans like a truck. Shrapnel tears through him, his chest, his abdomen, his legs. He goes down hard. The crew rushes to him. "Captain, medic, we need a corpsman." Evans is bleeding badly. His uniform is soaked. His face has gone gray, but he waves them off. And this is documented in survivor testimony. Multiple sources confirm this. "I'm fine. Get back to your posts. Keep firing. Sir, you need medical attention. That's an order. Fight the ship." They go back, because if the captain won't quit, how can they? At 9:20 a.m., something catastrophic happens. The last engine dies, just stops. The Johnston goes dead in the water. She's drifting. No power, no steering, just a hulk being carried by the current. But the last gun mount, the only one still functional, keeps firing. The crew is loading and aiming manually because there's no power for the hydraulics. They're doing it by hand. The Japanese destroyers see that the Johnston is dead in the water. They move in like wolves surrounding wounded prey. They form a circle around her. And at point-blank range, we're talking maybe 2,000 yards, they pour fire into her. 5-inch shells, 6-inch shells, ripping through the thin hull. Each impact sounds like a car crash. Metal screaming, men screaming. The remaining gun mount takes a direct hit. It's blown apart. The crew manning it, all killed instantly. Fire is spreading everywhere. The deck is buckling from the heat. Men are jumping overboard because staying on the ship means burning alive. At 9:45 a.m., Commander Evans, barely conscious, held up by 2 sailors, gives his final order. His voice is weak, but it's clear. Abandon ship. All hands, abandon ship. Men start going over the side, into the oil-slicked water. into the Pacific Ocean where sharks are already circling. Some have life jackets, most don't. They jump anyway because there's no choice. At 10:10 a.m., the USS Johnston rolls over, her hull number, 557, still visible, now pointing at the sky. She hangs there for a moment, like she's reluctant to go, like she's making one final statement. We did not surrender. And then she slides beneath the waves. Now, I need to tell you something that happened next. Something that, when I first read about it, gave me chills. Still does every time I think about it. As the Johnston sinks, there are about 200 men in the water. Most of the crew, they're scattered across maybe a square mile of ocean. Oil-covered, wounded, exhausted. And the Japanese destroyer Yukikaze, one of the ships that had just been shooting at them, passes close by. The survivors brace themselves. They think they're about to be strafed. It happened sometimes in the Pacific War. Ships would machine gun survivors in the water. But the Yukikaze doesn't fire. Instead, as she passes, the Japanese sailors line up on the deck and they salute. They salute the men of the Johnston. Let that sink in for a second. These are the enemy, the people who were trying to kill them 5 minutes ago. And they're saluting. Multiple American survivors reported this. They described the Japanese sailors standing at attention, hands to their foreheads, showing respect to men who had just fought one of the most courageous battles they'd ever witnessed. This is what happens when warriors recognize warriors, when courage transcends nationality, transcends the brutality of war, and becomes something universal. The Japanese knew what they'd just seen. They knew the Johnston could have run, should have run. That fighting was insane, suicidal. And the Johnston fought anyway. That deserves respect, even from the enemy, especially from the enemy. Of the Johnston's 327 men, 186 died. About 50 were killed in action during the battle. Another 45 died on life rafts from their wounds over the next 2 days. And 92, including Commander Ernest Evans, were alive in the water after the ship sank but were never found, never heard from again. Evans was last seen by several survivors getting into a life raft. He was badly wounded, bleeding, but conscious. And then, nothing. He disappeared. Some think he died from his wounds. Others think he was taken by sharks. We'll never know. But here's what we do know. Admiral Kurita, commanding the Japanese center force from the Yamato, made a decision that changed everything. He withdrew. With victory in his grasp, with those carriers right there, with the invasion beaches wide open, he turned his fleet around and retreated. Why? After the war, American intelligence officers interviewed Kurita. They asked him, "Why did you withdraw? You could have destroyed the entire American force. You could have massacred the invasion fleet." And Kurita's answer, I'm paraphrasing from the interrogation transcripts, was essentially this: "I believed I was facing a much larger American force. The ferocity of the destroyer attack, the number of torpedoes in the water, the chaos. I thought it was a trap. I thought Halsey's battleships were about to appear over the horizon and annihilate my fleet, so I withdrew to preserve my ships. It wasn't a trap. There were no battleships coming. It was 7 small ships making him think there were 70. It was the Johnston and her sisters selling their lives to create the illusion of strength, and it worked. The carriers escaped. The invasion beaches were saved. Thousands, maybe tens of thousands of American lives were preserved, all because Ernest Evans looked at impossible odds and said, 'We're attacking.' Let me show you something else that's incredible." In 1944, Commander Evans was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. He was the first Native American in U.S. Navy history to receive it, one of only 2 destroyer captains in all of World War II to earn that honor. The citation reads, and I'm going to read you the key part: "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty, as commanding officer of the USS Johnston in action against enemy Japanese forces. Outgunned and outweighed, he unhesitatingly took on the enemy force, proceeding at high speed into the teeth of withering fire." The Johnston received the Presidential Unit Citation, 6 battle stars. She became one of the most decorated destroyers in U.S. Navy history. But the real legacy isn't the medals. It's what she represents. Fast forward to 2019, 75 years after the Johnston sank. A research vessel, the RV Petrel, funded by Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen, is searching the waters off Samar Island. They're using cutting-edge sonar, deep-sea submersibles, looking for the wreck, and they find her. The USS Johnston is lying at a depth of 21,180 feet. That's more than 4 miles down. She's the deepest shipwreck ever discovered. When explorer Victor Vescovo descended in his submersible to examine the wreck in 2021, what he found was haunting. The forward 2/3 of the hull is still intact, sitting upright on the ocean floor. Her forward 5-inch guns are still there, still trained to starboard, pointing at the enemy she faced when she went down. Her hull number, 557, is still clearly visible, bright white against the rust and decay, like a gravestone. The bridge is still recognizable. There's a hole beneath where Evans commanded the ship from that 6-inch shell that hit near the end, the place where he stood and refused to quit. But here's what hit me when I saw the photographs. The wreck is broken in two. She split apart where that 18.1-inch shell from Yamato hit her early in the battle. The aft third of the ship, the part that's missing, they haven't found it yet. It might be scattered, it might be buried in the sediment, or it might be so damaged it's unrecognizable. The Johnston didn't just sink, she was torn apart, destroyed so thoroughly that even on the ocean floor you can see the violence of what happened to her. But she's still there, still keeping watch, a steel monument 4 miles down. And here's something that chokes me up every time I think about it. Inside that wreck are the remains of the men who went down with her. The ones who couldn't escape, the ones who died at their posts. They're still there, still at their stations, still fighting in a way. Okay, let me bring this home, because I didn't tell you this story just to recount a naval battle. I told you this story because it teaches us something profound about human nature. Ernest Evans had a choice. We all have choices, every day of our lives. And most of the time, the choice is between the easy path and the hard path. Evans could have run. Every tactical manual said to run. Every survival instinct said to run. His crew would have understood. Command would have understood. Nobody, and I mean nobody, would have blamed him for retreating in the face of overwhelming force. But he looked at those carriers, at the men on those ships, at the soldiers on those beaches, and he decided their lives were worth more than his. That's not just courage. That's transcendence. That's the moment when a human being stops being an individual and becomes something larger, becomes a symbol, becomes an idea. The idea that some things are worth dying for. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. That's war. That's different. I'll never be in that situation. And you're right. Most of us will never face a Japanese fleet. We'll never have to decide whether to charge into certain death. But here's the thing. We all face our own battles. We all have moments where we have to choose between doing what's easy and doing what's right, between protecting ourselves and protecting others, between running and standing our ground. Maybe it's standing up for someone being bullied when everyone else is walking away. Maybe it's telling the truth when a lie would save you. Maybe it's staying loyal to your principles when abandoning them would benefit you. Those are your battleships. Those are your moments of choice. And the question is, when that moment comes, what will you do? Will you run, or will you turn toward the danger and say, "This is what I came here for"? The Johnston gives us an answer. She shows us what's possible when people refuse to accept defeat, when they decide that some things, honor, duty, sacrifice, matter more than survival. So, let me ask you directly. If you were on the Johnston that morning and you saw that fleet and you heard Evans give the order to attack, would you have followed him? Would you have charged into certain death because it was the right thing to do? I think you would, because that's what humans do at their best. We find something worth dying for, and we give everything. Let me know in the comments, because your answer matters. It says something about who you are, and if this story moved you, if you felt even a fraction of what those men felt, here's what I need you to do. Hit that like button right now. This story deserves to be seen. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because next week I'm bringing you the Battle of Besing Pass. 77 Filipino soldiers, surrounded, outnumbered 30-1, held their ground for 3 months. It's the Pacific War's version of the Alamo, except they won. You need to hear what they did. Share this video. Send it to someone who needs to hear a story about real courage, about sacrifice, about what humans can do when they refuse to quit. And if you want more on the Battle of Samar, I've linked a full documentary in the description. The complete story of Taffy 3, how 7 small ships stopped an empire. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring enough about history to spend 25 minutes with me. Thank you for making sure Ernest Evans and the crew of the Johnston are never forgotten. The Johnston lies 4 miles down in the Philippine Sea, the deepest grave in the ocean. But her spirit, the courage to charge forward when everyone else runs, the refusal to surrender even when defeat is certain, that lives on. In every sailor who serves, in every person who faces impossible odds and fights anyway. In you, if you choose it. Commander Evans said it on day 1. I intend to go in harm's way. He kept his promise. And because he did, 327 men became immortal. Never forget the Johnston. Never forget what she stood for. And when your moment comes, charge forward.